I did not know that until he graduated from the program and he wanted to meet with me. His story is extremely powerful, and I am so unbelievably proud of him. I mean, from where he was to where he's at now, I mean, I don't think people would really grasp and understand.
On the last episode of part 1 of the Blue Grit podcast.
And because of the pandemic, it was difficult to have those absolutely important conversations with our community. That program was to try to get people out of a violent life by recognizing what the root causes are. And so, what we wanted to do is we gave a message and say, listen, we don't want any violence in Dallas, and we'll use every tool we have to ensure no one hurts our community. But if you need help with mental health, if you need help with substance abuse, if you need a job, if you need a job training, if you need education, if you need your driver's license because you just got released out of prison, we wanted to have a holistic program that could help those individuals get into a positive life. I did not know that until he graduated from the program and he wanted to meet with me. And when he told me his story, I did not realize that. It's
powerful, man.
His story is extremely powerful, and I am so unbelievably proud of him. I mean, from where he was to where he's at now, I mean, I don't think people would really grasp and understand the magnitude of what he accomplished. And again, he gets all the credit. But I had no idea. I really didn't. A lot of people, drink, and a lot of people say, oh, I drink too much and this and that and the other, but they don't understand when you're in such a dark place where it is affecting everything, your health and your relationships, and hiding it from friends, and
becomes debilitating.
It really does. And I mean, it's such a powerful story and again, what's great about his story is that because of his story, because of his bravery, because of his success, and because the department kept their word, because I think he graduated from the program, and a very short time later, I promoted him.
Mm-hmm. Talking about standing by your people, though.
And, well, here's the thing, right? Because I thought about that, and I'm like, if someone comes at me and goes, how would you promote someone that got out of a program like that? I go, well, one, you're an idiot. Because if someone were to ask me, I go, one, you're an idiot, because if you have no idea how many alcoholic police officers are working in this country that never come up for help, and you never know who they are.
At all ranks.
And they get promoted anyway.
Yep, absolutely.
So
do you
that's
want a recovering or a functioning?
Yeah, no one ever. I had it all locked and loaded. If someone were to come after me with that, because we just need to be proactive. And because of his story, I believe other officers have trusted the department and have come forward. And he was one of the first. And I'm glad he wanted to come forward because that was completely on him. But again, it's actually his. To be honest with you, I think that program is so successful not only because of Joe and the others that listen, that spend countless hours listen to the officers and their trauma, but because of his example, I think people came forward.
Well, and ATO really does a great job. ATO is a great organization. They do a fantastic job supporting the officers.
Oh, absolutely, they do. And they've stepped up to the plate as well. And again, born out of that, you have more. I haven't talked to Joe about from a funding perspective, but I can imagine. I've always said this about the city of Dallas. In the Metroplex, man. There's people have big hearts that match their bank accounts, and people are looking for good reasons to fund different programs. And I tell you what they do for the men and women in law enforcement. Again, at the end of the day, this is for community. This is for community building. Because as I mentioned earlier, show me a cop who's mentally strong, and mentally healthy, and I'll show you a happy community member.
What's unfortunate is Dallas has a lot of support from you through ATO, et cetera. The other 2,800 law enforcement agencies in Texas, not so much. I mean, obviously Irving, we have progressive departments, Fort Worth, Houston, and their ATO. But boy, you get out into some of the small rural departments, that if that officer comes forward, he or she is going to be sent for a fitness for duty.
Yep.
Because they're going to cut bait at that point.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what. Listen, I know for a fact recruiting in this country for law enforcement is no easy task. There is not a city that I know of that's, I mean, a major city. We all struggle, right? We've all struggled. And I can't tell you, like, on first days with having recruits in the academy, we had, like, wives or girlfriends thank us for the wellness unit. If you want a recruiting tool, I mean, first of all, you do things for the right reasons. And you can't just have an app for mental health for your officers.
Right.
That's a cop out. You have to listen. We always say this. When I was a police chief and we talk about city councils, right? They can say what they want positively, but until they vote on the dais for something, anything they said really doesn't mean that much until they put their money where their mouth is. And generally speaking, I mean, again, in Dallas, we were very successful and worked well with our council, but similar to a chief. You have chiefs talking about how mental wellness is great. Okay, what have you done? We all struggle with staffing, right? But what skin have you put in the game? And that's important. And so I think, it'll continue to be important from a recruiting perspective. If you're an organization that treats their officers that way, there's a lot of us in a lot of organizations that do not. And as these young kids kick the tires on departments on support and lack of support, that's not a very good recruiting tool.
Absolutely.
I think part of, too, the success, and bragging on you here, presence was huge, pillar of your leadership. But I think the other part, too, is one of the biggest problems that we deal with every day in law enforcement is micromanaging chiefs, dictator, tyrant chiefs. And that's one thing everybody I talk to talks about. Joe talks all the time about, chief told us, hey, do whatever you got to do, take care of these cops. I was listening to Ruben Ramirez speak recently, and he's like, Chief Garcia called me in, said, I need this unit, and said, y'all go forth and build something, get something and go build it. And he said, you pretty much empowered them to go forth and do something. And all the way down the line to Joe and everybody I talked to around Dallas is like, Chief tells us, go handle this, go do that, and trust. One of the first people to graduate from the program, I think the department got to see, damn, Eddie stood by his freaking word. That dude went right back to work. He's not getting wrist slapped. He's not, which immediately built legit trust, because there's no trust anywhere else. People call us in a crisis. They're like, well, I'm not using my employment, my EAP. I'm not doing this. I'm not telling the chief. I'm not doing that. And immediately it gave instant credibility that you're going to follow through. I'm not going to get screwed if I come forward. And then just hearing all your guys talking about being empowered. And it's amazing what people will do if you trust them and empower them to go do it. And this OWL unit's a model all over the country. We're offline, I was telling you, I take a call a week of somebody calling saying, do you know I can get in touch with Dallas and get a model of whatever it is they got going on, because it's incredible, literally from all over the country. There's a lot to be said for that. And that's culture changing. We were talking about the old days and you could never come forward. It's literally an entire culture change that's going on in law enforcement.
Well, you hit a name that was integral in implementing this. And, I was fortunate enough to have someone as passionate for this particular topic that was high ranking, like Ruben Ramirez. This wasn't someone that went out to study, like, okay, what do I have? No, he lived and breathed it. His heart was in it. And so it was an absolute, it was one of those things that it was meant to be. Because, that doesn't happen all the time. You got to find the right person to take this on. And Ruben was amazing, and he did exactly that. But, as a police chief, man, you have so many things you got to do. There's things you have to be really involved in. But you really have to practice staying a mile wide and an inch deep. And really, you have to trust your people until you can't trust them, right? So, listen, I trusted it until you can't trust. That's really the way it goes, right? Trust but verify. And for the most part, people want to lead. That's why they become commanders and sergeants and other things. It's like, they want to lead. That's what makes the job enjoyable, right? When I was a police chief and my boss would ask me, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, they didn't go into details. That's exactly what they wanted. So that's what makes it fun to go, okay, the boss wants this. Let me come up with my way to figure this out and get to the final outcome. That's what makes this job so much fun.
Yep.
And so the micromanaging part, I've really never liked it when I was a cop. So I try to practice what I preach.
Well, it was cool too, watching one of your exit interviews, and they were asking you, who may be next, and you said, well, I've got several people in house that would be great, and Michael Igo and Ruben, and there's a lot of people. It's funny, I was talking to a chief about 6 months ago, and he thought this was, I guess he thought this was a positive thing. He goes, yeah, I don't remember if he said 3 or 4. I have 3 or 4 assistant chiefs, and, they're all dumbasses, and, not one of them could, I've got to stay and blah, blah, blah. No, and finally I told him, I said, Chief, I don't know if you realize that or not, but that's not an indictment of them. That's actually an indictment of you. Because if you had actually been doing a good job, what you should be saying is, I have 3 or 4 people that can take my job today. If I'm hit by a bus, I have 3 or 4 outstanding leaders that are ready to step. But for whatever reason, he thought it was amazing to destroy his 3 or 4 direct reports. And I thought, man, what a broken belief system as a leader. And I would suspect he's probably micromanaged everything, is why those 3 or 4 have never been empowered to do anything, which is exact opposite of what I keep hearing from the Dallas folks.
Well, I'm not quite certain how far someone's going to get calling their commanders dumbasses publicly. What they're going to get on that. But again, with the mantra of, you want your men and women to go through a wall for you, right? That's bullshit. You have to go to a wall for them.
Yeah.
And it's not the other way around, right? And it was touching, because in my last podcast that I did with Joe,
that one's tough to get through.
It was tough for me to get through. But you wonder as a chief, right? And you're so busy and you're so caught up in the job and what you're doing, and you do wonder, was anyone noticing? Was anyone noticing? Not noticing good or bad job, just noticing how we do some things that the community liked, that council appreciated, that brought trust, that the men and women morale was high, were people. And you don't stop and go and wonder, and it hit me like at that point that they were paying attention, right? And everyone's going to do things differently, right? Every chief's going to put their different stamp on the department. And so that's, and the next chief's job is to do a better job than the previous chief. That's their job. Their job is to get the department in a better place than the previous chief had it. Because if that's not your mentality, then you're going after the wrong job. And outgoing chiefs can't feel threatened by that. That's what the goal is.
Leave it better than you found it.
Leave it better than you found it. And so as many strides as we did in Dallas, I hope the next chief takes them to even a higher place, right? Gets morale even higher, gets a community trust even higher, gets council support even higher. That's what their job is, and that's what they need to do. And so it's an exciting opportunity, in the city of Dallas. Obviously now, my good friend, Neil Noakes, who announced his retirement of Fort Worth. So I know both those departments are going to have new leadership here in the next 6 months to a year. And there's a lot of good opportunities for both, whatever candidates get those jobs.
So speaking of new jobs, you have a new job. Let's talk about that. And you're not going to be the chief this time. So you bring experience, you bring successes, but you're not sitting in that chair anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, first of all, when I made the decision that it was time for me to leave the profession, and our line of work as chiefs, it's better to leave the party early than leave the party late. You can't be power drunk. You can't hold on to these jobs for too long. And I left on my terms, right? And so this new position in this job is exciting. I think I've here 6 weeks, I think. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. I'm enjoying the interactions with the mayor, enjoying the interactions with council, enjoying the interactions with the chief and with the rank and file. And again, I got 2 amazing bosses. City manager Broadnax, who's the city manager that hired me in Dallas, John Fortune, who was a deputy city manager in Dallas that I worked with and for. They're here now. So, I feel tremendous support. The job now, obviously, to the point you said, I'm not the chief, I'm not the director. But to me, from a perspective of, having, police, fire, EMS, our chief medical officer, chief medical doctor, labor relations, Office of Emergency Management, and then forensics is obviously we have 7 departments. The directors, we get together every week. It's a fantastic team, and it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable. Listen, we've always, as police chiefs through the years, listen, there's not a police chief in this country that hasn't complained in some way, shape, or form about city government, right? And so what do we say as cops when we get criticized unfairly? We say, hey, come join and see what it's about, right? Well, I joined, right? And so what's cool about it is I remember my frustrations as a chief. I've been a chief whether in Texas or here since 2016, or in California rather, in Texas in 2016. And so now I want to be part of the solutions, right? I want to be able to clear up some frustrations. I want to be able to block and tackle and give direction and be that conduit between the rank and file and the city manager, the rank and file and city council, give my perspective on things from a track record that shows that, listen, we held ourselves accountable. I am not someone that says we do not make mistakes. We absolutely do, but I'll call balls and strikes. And so I want to be an advocate for both the council, the manager, and the rank and file, and none of those are mutually exclusive. You can be for all three. So, the most difficult part about the job, as I told you earlier, is just trying to figure out what I wear every day.
And I think it was cool, and it never dawned on me, and I heard a bunch of your troops mention it. Our chief's a uniform guy, and I started paying attention, and you showed up in uniform, and you looked squared away, but that meant a lot to people to see the chief show up, by gosh, in a Dallas police uniform. Is that something you've always done, or just something you realized I'm gonna show up like they look? Or
oh no, I've always done it. I think the only time that I didn't wear a uniform was when I was working narcotics or homicide, but I was in uniform pretty much. Whether I was whether I was a 3-star in San Jose or the 4-star in San Jose, and then obviously in Dallas, I just felt it's important to wear a uniform. I mean, at the end of the day, and I've worked all the special ops units, I've worked those units, but generally speaking, the majority of every police department wears patrol, right? Yep. And so as chiefs, we often say patrol's important, but seldom we do a lot of things to show patrol's important. Wearing a uniform, although it's an optic, only is important.
Because it meant a lot. I've heard it multiple times and never thought of it.
And you represent that. There's a lot of things. And again, patrol is the backbone of any organization. The number one priority of any police department is to answer the 911 call for service. And that's done by our men and women in patrol, the ones that are in uniform. And so if at the very least, the least you could do is represent the majority of your department. While everyone who's a specialized unit, there's called specialized units for a reason. Patrol is the backbone. And to do that, I think it's important.
What do you see on the horizon in Austin? What do you see as your challenges?
Well, our challenge is just getting out of the hole that we've been in the last few years. From a staffing perspective, I think is important. Procedural justice. Procedural justice has to occur in an organization in order for it to exist outside of an organization. And so obviously procedural justice as to how we treat our residents, but procedural justice, how our officers are treated, is important as well. Making sure that relationships with the city council are strong. The one thing is, and I'll say this, in all fairness, we don't like to be judged by past sins. So we can't be hypocritical either to judge other entities by past sins. This is a city council that is relatively new from a perspective of what's happened in the country in a few years, and we have to continue to mend those relationships. They speak for their communities, but we have to work with our city council. And I've spoken with council members that show support. We have to bridge that because unfortunately, our men and women on Austin Police Department feel that there's a lack of support.
Definitely.
And I think it's my job particularly, and I'm as honest as can be, but I've spoken to council members that this is a different council. They are supportive. Some of them are very supportive. We need to make sure that we mend those because our men and women do need to know that they have someone fighting for them when we're right. We have a tremendous leadership with City Manager Broadnex that supports law enforcement, and I can speak to it firsthand because we've gone through our trials and tribulations in Dallas together, and never did he not have my back, and so I know that. But we need to get staffed up. There's no question about it. With PD, there's the other departments. Staffing is a concern. Response times, things of that nature. Vehicles are needed. As I said, we need to be a data-driven police department. We need to be data-driven everywhere, really, quite frankly, in all of public safety. And subsequently, our challenge is really, I'm not going to deny it. I mean, the reality of it is the Austin Police Department specifically, they've been demoralized. I'd be lying if it wasn't anything else, right? I mean, and we need to bring that up. And we need to bring that up as a city. And we're going to work on that. I'm going to die trying. I'm not naive to council expectations and council's priorities, and I don't begrudge council for that. I've been doing this job for a really long time. And so it's a matter of mending, not holding people accountable for past sins either, by giving people an opportunity to chance. Because I have spoken to council members that truly support and want to continue to support. Mayor Watson, I've spoken to him. He is very supportive as well. With the contract that just passed for the police department, that was huge. That was a big sign that things are turning around. But I also get it, right? I also get it's easy for me to say those things, but when you're an officer that's been on APD for years that does not feel supported, then we have to work that much harder to show them how much support they have. And so really the biggest challenge, at least from the police department's perspective, is raising that morale, right? But you don't raise morale by just telling them, "Hey, let's go." We have to put up, right? And there's things that we have to do internally. That Chief Davis has been fantastic in my conversations with her, in really learning the department. And Chief Davis is a cop. In the conversations I've had with her, right? But she also understands the dynamics and understands the fact that we need to be better as a profession and the things that we need to do for our community. But she's also a cop. And I think, she's been here 3 months, right? So I think these things take time. But the fact, I hope, that if any member of the Austin Police Department is listening, is the fact that we recognize that we need to do things to raise your morale, that we need to show you that we support you. And because I've said this before, there's no violent crime plan. There's nothing that's going to work if morale is not at a better level. And for us to not talk about morale would just be disingenuous and, quite frankly, irresponsible, because we need to raise that. And we need to make sure that, again, that there are things that we need to give back to our community. We need to show that our community can trust us. We need to hold ourselves accountable. There's no question about it. But we also need to honor the work that honorable men and women put their lives on the line for this city, for the city of Austin, every single day. And as I mentioned at the start of this, those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. We need to do both, and we will do both.
One of the best sound bites I heard, one of your exit interviews, we deal with it a lot on our calls, was a good leader, and you said it a while ago. A good leader needs to know when it's time to go, not overstay your welcome, know when to leave the party. And we watch it across the state with police chiefs and sheriffs, and even in the corporate world, you watch people, politicians, overstay the time until they're effective, or they've lost the passion or the vision or the following that are willing to follow them. And you left basically after winning the Super Bowl. I mean, you were still at the peak of your game. Do you miss the job? Do you miss strapping a badge and gun, putting a uniform on every day? Or do you appreciate that you went out on top and didn't overstay and ride it down to the bottom?
Well, again, I know I use this term a few times today, but both of those aren't mutually exclusive. Like, I will say, I'm not going to tell you I don't miss it. Of course I do. Yeah. I miss getting back in uniform and putting the badge on. And when it hit me, when I was thinking about it, I was at a police officer funeral. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm not going to be part of this anymore. And that hurt. Obviously, yes, I'd still be in the audience or what have you, but to be part of the family, in uniform was going to hurt. I miss the people. I miss the men and women. I miss dealing with the issues. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but like, and I tell my boss all the time, I'm like, something happens and we deal with it. I'm like, I like dealing with issues like that. So yeah, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss the late calls. I'm going to miss that. Having said that, it is better to leave the party early and leave the party late. I'll be honest with you. One of the best things that happened when I was at National Night Out, when everyone knew that I was leaving, I think it was last month that I was in Dallas. Man, the amount of people, regardless what neighborhood we went to, they would tell me, we're mad at you. I mean, I got more.
I watched it on social media. It was like you had filed for divorce against these citizens.
I'm more mad at you than anyone saying, hey, happy for you that you're retiring. That's great. But all of that came from a place of love. Right?
Yeah, it's better than thank God he's freaking gone.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I tell people this. Because there was a lot of angst when I was leaving. I mean, I guess to put it nicely. But man, is there a better time to go? Like, yep. Are we going to wait till there's some crisis that happens and people want you to leave?
Daryl Gates. I mean, an amazing career, one of the greatest police chiefs ever. But look how his career ended after the riots and whatnot.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we've all worked with chiefs that were at the top of their game, and then they hung on for a year or two, and by the time they left, man. Yep. But it was the time to leave. To me, I tell people, listen, why did you leave when things were going well? Well, when things are going well, is a time to leave. I mean, a chief's life expectancy normally is 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5, yeah. Right, and I stayed almost 4, and so, and for personal reasons. I mean, I know. Everyone said I'm going to be a grandfather, and I want to take more time to hang out with my kids, and particularly my grandson. At the time, we didn't know it was going to be a grandson. He was a grandson that'll be here in April. And
congrats!
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward. Because here's the thing, right? So I always felt guilt leaving the city, always, and that's a me thing. But even when things weren't going on, I just did not feel good, like going somewhere on a weekend, because I know it's busy, even if nothing happens. Like, your men and women know you're not here, right? I felt so guilty, so I went to go visit my son a couple weeks ago, and I remember thinking, man, I feel no guilt, right? Because I feel guilty. I mean, and so that's refreshing. But what's cool about it, I'm still in the game, right? Yeah. Yes. Like I'm still in the game to help. To help the directors get to where they need to be, right? So it's the best of both worlds.
You may even be in a position now to have even greater influence, right? Because you're higher up the food chain now. And over more departments, not just police.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think at the end of the day, particularly when it comes to policy, budget decisions, things of that nature, that, whether things go our way or not, there's a myriad of decisions that come into whether you get something or you don't. But at least I'm going to feel good that I was there fighting for them, right? Fighting for public safety, right? And one of the good dynamics in this role, and one of the things that City Manager Broadneck's really, not only is it public safety, but he really wants us to have a hand and a word and an opinion on the broader issues throughout the city, right? So I couldn't pick a better leader to work for in City Manager Broadneck's. I mean, quite frankly, that's one of the reasons I'm here. And so it's an opportunity to think about the things that our public safety departments need help with, and do the best I can to, number one, get it if we can, but then also speak truth to the directors as well as to why we can't. And trust me, this is why we can't. And I think that'll be enjoyable for me.
People have asked me about yours and TC's relationship and what that is, and I think you hear Ruben Ramirez and you hear Joe talking about you empowered them. Well, I think it's probably a trickle down. TC's allowed you, your police department, go freaking handle it. In turn, you've told your people, Go handle it. And it's amazing when you empower people, you can change the whole culture in the city of Dallas.
Oh, 100%. And that's what, and that's the culture that TC brings to the city of Austin, and it'll trickle down as well. Because it is. There's amazing people that work here, right? That they want an opportunity to do good, and they want to have their ideas and things be heard. You have to stand up for your people when you need to, and we'll support our leaders to do that. And at the end of the day, we have a job to do, and we understand all of us have been in the game for a while with regards to what's important, right? Our men and women are incredibly important. Our community is important, and be empowering people to make those decisions and to go out and is something that definitely changes culture.
So I got a couple wild cards to throw at you.
Oh boy, here we go.
With you being 40 years old,
yeah, I wish.
What would Eddie Garcia right now say to 16-year-old Eddie Garcia?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. To 16-year-old Eddie Garcia, to say, keep staying out of trouble. Because I was 16 when I wanted to be a cop. And it went from there. But I would tell Eddie Garcia, and whether it's 16-year-old Eddie Garcia or 21-year-old Eddie Garcia as a police officer, is control what you can control. Right? I think we spend a lot of time worrying about the things we can't control, right? We have to control what we can't control. And that alleviates a lot of stress early on. And that's something from whether you're a 21-year-old cop to, would have been 33 years for me in law enforcement in February, or whether you've been in the profession for 32 and a half years. Control what you can control. And work on those things to make what you can control better, right? And when you think about it, it's like the best. I always bring it back to football, but it's like the best defensive coordinators. What do they say to their guys? Do your job.
Yeah.
Right. If you all do your job collectively, we're going to be successful. Right.
Stay in your lane. Stay
in your lane. Do your job. You got A gap. Stay in A gap. Your job is not to chase the runner to C gap, because he'll cut back into A gap.
Yep.
So your job is A gap. And so think about that. If all of us, right? I don't know, sounds crazy to say that, but if all of us really just worried about our jobs and did the best we could at our jobs without worrying about someone else's job, but we all truly cared like a good defensive team, think about what we could accomplish.
Personally and professionally.
Exactly. 100%.
Almost 33 years in this business. What is Eddie's very, very best day and Eddie's worst day?
My best day, I'll combine my best days, man. I'll tell you this. I smiled, and I'll go too, right? I mean, my best days were doing a community meeting and speaking to a broad group of community that I always said, whether it was good or bad, it was a gift because they were there, and giving that meeting in English. And then having to run across town and give the exact same community meeting that I had in Spanish. Those always made me smile. Seeing the great police work, seeing guns taken off the street, violent felons taken off the street, and recognizing that it's not about the arrest necessarily. It's about the lives that were saved because of that arrest. It isn't a trophy that someone puts on a wall. To me, it was like, do you realize because that violent criminal was taken off the street, and regardless, again, worry about yourself, not the other systems, but at least for that night, no one else got hurt because of the bravery of that police officer. Those are the best days. The worst days is getting the call. The worst days are giving the flag away. The worst day is hugging a mom, a wife, a brother, who is devastated because of the loss of a hero. Those are the worst days.
You've had a profound impact on the Pinton family because there's not a moment I see them that they don't mention their Eddie Garcia.
They're amazing. You don't forget any of them. I remember that hospital visit like it was yesterday. I love that family. They are absolutely amazing. And we talk about family, but they're really family. Like I can't wait to see them again. I can't wait to give them a hug. They're just tremendous people, so strong. And, everyone grieves in different ways, and the way they deal with their grief and the loss of their baby boy is by giving back to the department. They're a fixture in the department, a fixture at the station. But again, they're so strong. I know the love that I have for my kids, and I can't even fathom what that feels like. But I know how much I love my kids that I don't know, how they get through, and they are just so strong. And I mean, they have each other, which is amazing. But yeah, they're beautiful people. And again, that was those are the roughest days.
We wrap up usually with a rapid fire. Favorite cop movie or line from a cop movie?
Oh, favorite cop movie's Heat.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one.
That's a
good one.
I'm aging myself, but yeah, Heat.
No, that's a great one. That's a really good one. We don't get that answer that often. That's a good one. Favorite.
End of Watch was good too, but I got to go with Heat.
So I've told both my boys, if you ever want to see the brotherhood camaraderie and the jacking around and the most realistic form of it, End of Watch.
Okay, so it's funny you say that, because I say the same thing. Whoever the technical advisor was for that movie absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, nailed it.
Yep. I've told both my boys, you can't recreate the sitting in the squad room, busting each other's chops and all of that. They killed it. They did it.
They killed it for sure.
Great answer. Favorite squad car all time?
Ooh, good one. Now, this is coming from a guy who started with a Diplomat, by the way.
Dodge Diplomat.
But I'm going to go, you know what? They didn't look great, but they handled, I'm going to go with the Chevy Capri.
Yeah.
Did like 94 to 96?
No, before that. Late 80s. Not the big whale looking one.
No. I'm talking about the whale one.
Oh, I didn't
The
like the whale.
I did not-
LS Corvette motor in it?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so Crown Vic's the number one answer on here, and everybody tells me I'm insane. That's the best squad car. Like 94, 93, whatever that.
they handled.
Had the Corvette motor in
Yeah,
them.
they handled well too. I know they didn't look. We called them the
Yeah,
Orca.
they looked-
the
they
whale
looked
car.
ugly.
Orca, the
But
Web.
I thought for me they handled well, and they had some giddy up.
Oh, gosh.
And no, that's not so. I'm gonna go off. I'll be different and say
I
that one.
love it. That's my answer, and I get my chops busted for that one.
You can bust my chops, but that's mine.
I love it. Last one. When kicking off and it's Eddie at home alone, hanging out, or with friends, drink of choice.
Ooh, good one. Depends on how I feel. I would have to say I'm gonna have to give you two answers. It's either whiskey or but here's a weird one. All right, or Tito's and Diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh, that is a weird one.
Everyone says that. Whenever I ask for one, everyone looks at me crazy. I'm like, don't sleep on Diet Dr. Pepper. It'll sneak up on you too, but be careful. But yeah, Tito's and Diet Dr. Pepper or a good whiskey.
Nice.
Favorite brand of choice on the whiskey?
Ooh. I like Whistle Pig.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And but a very common one that's casual that I really like is Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo Trace is good. Yep, really good. Have you seen the Netflix special about the Buffalo Trace
No,
factory?
I haven't.
I'll look it up when we pop offline. So the workers there got to sneaking bottles out and selling it, which turned into cases, which turned into kegs, which turned into pappies, kegs of pappies.
Oh, really?
True documentary on Netflix, like 2-part, 3-part. I'll get it to you. It's awesome.
Oh, nice.
It's been a pleasure, Chief.
Oh, again, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Just for all of us in the profession, you hear this all the time. I would do it all over again. And you hear oftentimes from people, I wouldn't want to be a cop again, or I don't want my kids to be cops and this and that. I'm here to sit and tell you, well, we got to rise the levels of expectation. Things change. But of all the changes that I've seen, I would do it all over again.
I Love it.
And the message, don't lose hope out there. A lot of us support you. The pendulum is swinging. Stay true, stay honorable, do your jobs. And I can guarantee you, at least from here, from my perspective, support is coming, if not already here. But again, man, I'd do it all over again.
We'd love to have you back 6-8 months, a year out, and let's see what positive changes come.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I got to ask you, when Joe King worked for you, did you have a hard time making him keep his shirt on? We had him on the episode, and he didn't want to keep his shirt on. He kept asking if he could take it. Was that a challenge for you with Joe?
You know what? No, not to Joe. The only time, no, Joe always came out of the gym, though, it seems, whenever we met. But Joe likes to show off those guns.
We love some Joe King, man.
But Joe, Joe be listening here and he'll be laughing, but Joe loves to show off those guns. And You know what? They're show offable.
If I had pipes like that, I'd show them.
I mean, seriously, he show them off. We're at an event. We're at a fundraising. Was it Bags for Badges? And it was a country theme. And I show up, and there's Joe in his jeans, boots, cowboy hat, and of course a tank top.
I thought you were going to say a youth large shirt.
Well, hey, no, he works it. He works it. He does it well. He shows it off well.
He's got some pipes.
Yes, he does.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking time. I know you're freaking busy. I can't thank you enough for being a role model for executive level leadership around the country that's making it okay again to support your cops, to fight crime. For cops to be able to come forward and get help and say that, hey, man, I'm a little bit broken, and them having the trust to get to that they can navigate through that and still have a career on the backside of that. Can't thank you enough for the friendship and your important time to come on here, and would love to have you back, like John said.
Hey, like I said before, I'm honored to be here with you guys. And anytime, I'll do it anytime. I love it. The message is important. And we're here. We're here for our communities. So
Awesome.
We got to keep doing that, remembering that. And so whenever you need me, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Chief.
Guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Blue Grit Podcast. Give it a listen, give it a like, share with your friends out there. We love to have your support. If you got ideas for a guest, shoot it in the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, take care. Watch out for each one another out there. We love you guys. God bless each of you and your family. God bless Texas.